What did we just live through? Let's just go back to a year ago, our last broadcast of the year in 2023. 2023, looking into 2024, it looked daunting. I want you just to remember where you were, the news we were covering. It was incredibly daunting. Donald Trump was facing 700 years in federal prison. Donald Trump was not raising the money that major presidential candidates would be at that time. A year ago, we had not even had the Iowa caucus. A year ago, Ron DeSantis was still an active presidential candidate. A year ago, Nikki Haley was still an active presidential candidate. A year ago, Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, we had this whole field of challengers against President Trump a year ago. And we had not even gone through Iowa yet. A year ago, Ronna was still the chair of the RNC. A year ago, Joe Biden was the betting odds favorite to become president of the United States. A year ago, Joe Biden was still the Democrat presumptive nominee. It was daunting, and we were battle-hardened. After 2020, many of us became prisoners of cynicism and negativity. Almost everywhere I would visit, I would have to force people to try to believe. Yes, we can do it. They said, oh, our vote doesn't matter. And yes, a lot of you in this audience, I saved all of your emails. A lot of your emails. In fact, I could read them, but I don't know if it's a good use of our time. Where you guys would say, you don't know what you're talking about. We're going to lose no matter what. Don't embrace early voting. Nobody cares. And in some ways I get that, because you were held captive. You were a hostage of the carnage of 2020. What's the point in voting? But I made a promise to all of you. I made a promise to all of you a year ago. The last broadcast of 2023, I made a progress to Turning Point donors. I made a promise. I made a promise to our audience here on the Charlie Kirk Show. I made a promise to our millions of followers out there. I said, no one will work harder than Turning Point Action and the Charlie Kirk Show. I said, I will work. I said, I will travel the country. I will go to every nook and cranny. We will register the voters. We will chase the votes. We'll get into the elemental grassroots. We're going to hire 1,500 people. We're going to do the gritty type of work. We made a promise. We made a proclamation that no one would work harder. We did not guarantee success, but I asked many of you, please allow yourself to believe. Allow yourself to believe that this is possible. Allow yourself to believe that we can do this. Allow yourself to believe that we can win. And in some ways, the greatest challenge of 2024 was not even what we did. The greatest challenge was getting people to think we could win. The biggest challenge was believing. The hardest part for us was not hiring 1,500 people or raising the tens of millions of dollars it required to have the largest full-time army to chase ballots. The hardest thing was not visiting all the campuses or the 1.8 billion TikTok views, because it was monumental what we were able to do on TikTok this last year. 1.8 billion views on TikTok alone, not to mention YouTube or Instagram. No, the hardest part of what we were doing and what we did this last year was getting everyday rank and file Americans to think that their vote mattered, that they need to fight, and that Donald Trump can win. And think about it, just seemed overwhelming. It just seemed as if there's no way we could defeat the beast, that the machine is undefeated, that the Leviathan is going to pull something out of their sleeve, that there is something that was coming around the corner. And honestly, some of you were right when you said that. They did have a lot planned, but it just didn't fail. It didn't work. It failed. It required hope. It required faith. The greatest loser of 2024, the greatest loser, was doomerism and cynicism. The greatest loser were the thousands of you that would email us at times and say, Charlie, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to chase ballots. I'm not going to register voters because it's all rigged. Turns out you were wrong. It turns out those of us that believed enough to make it too big to rig, to hire the people to chase the ballots, to get in the grassroots, to take over the precinct committee positions, that you actually can effectuate change. 2024 should be the death of doomerism and not believing that change is possible. We won the youth vote in the state of Michigan, everybody. We nearly won it in Wisconsin. We nearly won it in Pennsylvania. We moved the youth vote 30 plus points. But if you were to come to the table with a belief system or a philosophy, oh no, it's impossible to change things and the country's going to hell and there's no reversing it, that mentality we were able to break with a lot of work. It wasn't easy because in some ways, the greatest opposition this last year was not of the left. It was cynical people on the right. Donors that didn't think that Trump could win. Grassroots folks that thought it was irredeemably rigged. But Charlie, the machines, voting early is terrible. Turns out voting early was actually excellent. Without voting early, we wouldn't have won. We were our own greatest enemy. And we worked, and we acted. Do you guys remember this last summer? This last June, July, August? When every day I said find new voters and register new voters? You helped make this happen. And this audience has been the tip of the spear, the vanguard. Every single day I'd be giving these pep talks in July, be giving these pep talks in August. Guys, we only have 100 days left to register voters. And all of that made a difference. And this year, this 2024, as we go through the individual elements throughout this hour, should be the end of saying that can't happen. No, it can happen. You just witnessed and were part of the greatest comeback in American political history. And all the doomers, all the people that were overly negative, they were wrong, and those of us that believed were right. The turning point this year, no pun intended, to be honest, was the work that a lot of you did in the grassroots back in Vegas. I believe that if the RNC was under current hands, if Rana still would have remained as chair of the RNC, I don't know if we would have won this cycle. And the RNC was a thankless fight. The RNC was a very difficult endeavor for us. We made a lot of enemies. In fact, the leadership of the RNC backstabbed me. They tried to destroy me. They leaked stories against me. They did everything they could to try to take out Turning Point. Turns out they were very unsuccessful, quite unsuccessful. NBC News reported at the time, conservative activist Charlie Kirk helped oust Ronna McDaniel at the RNC. Now the knives are out for him. Very few people were willing to take the stands and get in the arena and to try to remove the proven loser, Ronna McRomney. And Ronna McRomney remained as chair all after the 2022 midterms. But we said no. All through 2023, we knew she had to go. We knew that we needed to launch a grassroots campaign. Again, the president made the ultimate decision, and he deserves the credit for that, removing Ronna and then putting in Michael Whatley and Laura Trump, a terrific, a monumental upgrade. We had so many people warning us against this fight. Charlie, this is a big fight for you. You're going to make a lot of enemies. I said, so what? People that were in business with me. People telling me that they knew better. Yeah, they didn't. Honestly, I'll never forget that. People trying to tell me that, oh, we know better than you. And no, actually, you were wrong. And this audience was right. The grassroots of this show was correct in saying we have to remove Ronna McRomney. And we decided to ignore all the cautionary tales because we needed an RNC that was equipped to win. And by the way, the RNC run by Ronna, they did every dark arts, let's just say, move you could do to try to cancel us, to smear us. every scheme you could imagine. They were more worried at trying to take out Charlie Kirk and Turning Point than run the RNC. But we knew because of you in this audience, there was a 99% support to get rid of Rana. 99%. And they spent more energy beating us than trying to beat Democrats. Well, it turns out the removal of Ronna McRomney was critical. That the removal of Ronna McRomney was a foundational first step to the win we just had. And all of you that traveled to our Restoring National Confidence Summit in Vegas, do you have an idea of what we did? We were the only organization that was willing to plan our own RNC winter meeting simultaneous with the actual RNC winter meeting, which was the most brazen thing we could do. But we were not just going to sit idly by and allow this to happen. With 75 key GOP Republican chairs plus state chairs, using our data, using our application. We were in Vegas doing that work. And a lot of other organizations said, well, that's a little too close to the sun for us. We're afraid to pick that fight. Well, we weren't. We leaned right into the arena. And Ronna got removed, which was a massive victory for the grassroots and dramatically improved President Trump's chances. And from there, a year ago, again, January of 2024, we still looked like a movement in exile. Donald Trump won in Iowa, won in New Hampshire, but was he really going to be able to build this grassroots movement? It turns out that this year is a year that only happens once in many, many lifetimes. And throughout the hour, we're going to recap a lot of other things. The campus tours, the virality, the selection of J.D. Vance as vice president of the United States. Butler, Pennsylvania, leading all the way up until the last 90-day push where all of you chased ballots, where all of you registered voters, where all of you in this audience said no to the naysayers and you got into the game. And this is a year that we'll never forget. And that we must cherish, we must remember, that we must reflect, we must go through. And of course, finally, we are going to say thank you to God, because I believe the hand of God was evident and apparent all throughout this last year. That God had a plan and that we were just small little actors and instruments for his divine will and his purpose. We did many things this year at Turning Point Action, from the 1,500 people we had on the ground and chased ballots. We chased over 300,000 ballots in the state of Arizona, well over 60,000 ballots in the state of Wisconsin, and the scores of volunteers and all of you that worked so hard. This is your victory. This is your New Year celebration, and you should cherish that. You should celebrate in that. Here's when I lost my voice. Literally, it happened twice on the campaign trail. Let's play cut 26.
Megan, I want to get your analysis here of the state of the race. The debate is a distant memory. It's only like 9 or 10 days ago. Where do you think things stand right now? And has Kamala Harris successfully introduced herself to the American people?
Yeah, that was, by the way, that was on a good day. And it was rough. Let's just say that was rough. I remember when I sat down to do the show that day and I just checked in, Blake was like, oof. And I was making progress by that point. I was on the uptick. That was with the gain turned all the way up. I do have to say, the other big loser this year was Blake's prediction that 2024 was going to be a boring year. I'm sorry, I can't help but say it. Blake went on Thought Crime, and to his defense, he said, well, what if? But it's kind of one of those what if Blake things where he means it, but he's kind of poses it as a question. And he was hedging, but you knew Blake believed it. Turns out that was the worst take in Blake Neff history. We will put that one up. We should have a list of the worst Blake takes. That was up there. But Blake has good takes almost all the time, especially on the Roman Empire, which we will continue in 2025. We were honored at Turning Point Action to host history. There was 18,000 people at this event. And yet, for whatever reason, I think over 500,000 people say they were there. This is like when the Giants won the World Series on a walk-off home run? The old joke in San Francisco was something like this, that, it seated 22,000 people, but 2 million people say they were there. Everyone I meet in Arizona, I was at that Bobby Kennedy event. There's no way everyone I meet was at the Bobby Kennedy event. We were honored to help host this. Play cut 25.
He's a very low-key person, but he's highly respected. He is a great person. I've known him for so long. For the past 16 months, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Look at how great that imagery is. That was honestly, we did 7 major events with President Trump this last year. And I think that was the greatest. I mean, AmFest was unbelievable, and what an honor for the president to crisscross the country and to join us. But this was probably the greatest event. I have to say, the Bobby Kennedy event was the greatest event of 2024. I'm going to end this hour as we recap just of how we reacted on election night. It went very viral, and this is with all of you. I get more feedback than this than anything else. Let's play cut 19 as we heard the news that we took back our country. Play cut 19.
Fox News decides Donald Trump is president of the United States. We've got our republic back, folks.
Let's go.
There it is.
Everybody should remember this moment. Look, I'm gonna echo Charlie from earlier. Remember where you were when this happened. Remember where you were when you realized that the Uniparty and all of these, just the establishment, you said it's time to actually participate. And look what you guys have done.
And if anyone deserves to get tears in his eyes, it's Charlie. I think we all agree.
I think Erica was chopping some onions or something in the break room.
No one has worked harder than Charlie for this.
We gotta hear some words here from you, Charlie. You put all this together, my man. Let's hear it.
I am just humbled by God. It's all God. It's all God. God alone. God alone.
That's all I can say.
Decision desk has it. Pennsylvania.
It's done.
It's beginning.
Thank you in this audience for those of you that prayed for us, that had our back, that supported us, that donated to us, that defended us, that traveled alongside of us, that came to our events. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is your victory. In 2024, we look back a year ago, we were at this daunting, overwhelming task, and we just took out our shovel and we got to work. Thank you.